Oh. Stu, can you give me a hand with this task? Huh? Welcome back to another episode of Mumblin About, the show where we look for the hidden stories locked behind the Epic Key. Today we're going down the rabbit hole that was 2018, the year of God of War, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and a game that took nearly 2 years to be well known by most people. Among Us at the time of release back in 2018 was an original concept in the market where every studio was copying each other's homeworks, with mechanics built around games like Dead by Daylight, where you're all trying to do jobs, in most cases in Among Us, fix a ship. One of the members of the group playing the game is an imposter trying to kill all other members of the group, with the aim of the crewmates trying to figure out who the imposter is, and the imposter's aim to kill everyone on the ship. That is the basic premise of the game, and what made it such a massive hit in 2020, with it coming out of the blue 2 years after its release with the original concept. Among Us hit its peak in mid-2020 and is one of the biggest ongoing games today. There is a lot to mumble about, but we are going where it all started in 2017, when the game began development. Oh wait, it's gotta go do something. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about the beginning of Among Us. In the beginning, Among Us was inspired by a card game called Mafia, where a player is secretly assigned to a role throughout your playthrough. It was also said by the creator that the film The Thing was a massive inspiration. Thinking about this makes a lot of sense. If you look up the plot of The Thing, it's basically the first map of Among Us. It's very similar to other horror game movies as well, like Friday the 13th, R.I.P. and Dead by Daylight. Side note, who is hoping Chainsaw Massacre is going to be a reskin of Friday the 13th, but secretly wishes it was a Nightmare on Elm Street game, because it's developed by the same studio. This comes from a gamer who can only play horror games behind a cushion without crying. Anyway, we might mumble about that in the future. The concept for Among Us comes from Marcus Bromander, who is the co-founder of Studio Innersloth. Studio Innersloth. Okay, that's going to be hard to say for the rest of the video. The studio behind Among Us has also created the Henry Stickmin Collection series. The original concept of the game was called Space Mafia. This taking the two sides of the coin, moulding them into one, with one side being The Thing and the other side being the Mafia card game. But on release, the name got changed to Among Us. The original concept when developing the game is all there today, apart from the environment being changed from a boring old house to a more exciting spaceship. This is where the tasks were introduced to the game to keep things more interesting. However, the tasks that kept the ship going were always going to be active, even when you were having conversations about who was the imposter. Maybe this was to give a more sense of urgency, but the developers described it as very frustrating, with the game being changed 7 times before deciding on the final build and how they tackled this problem. Oh, I've got to go. Be back in a sec. Sorry about this again. About halfway through. Sorry about that. It's just a little side project I'm working on. Anyway, let's go back to it. Among Us actually had a quick development cycle, with it beginning development in 2017 and releasing in 2018. But as we know, the release in 2018 did not go to plan, with the initial launch player base was average at around 20 to 50, kind of similar to the player base of Marvel Avengers now.
I think you're going to beat me.
It also released without audio to make it harder for players to find the imposter. The fact there was no audio at the original release might have massively a misstep. Bromander said that it was due to the studio's poor marketing that Among Us never reached its full potential at the start of its run. Looking at other Innersloth games, he may have a point with the Henry Stickmin Collection being a great game with a strong fan base, but it's likely that there is a lot of players out there who would love it and just have no clue that it's around. However, Among Us did sell itself short at the original launch, with them closing off the player base to just mobile and only local and no online multiplayer. The mobile market is arguably the most saturated game market, making it hard for even studios like Innersloth, who already have massive releases on their belt, to stand out, and especially if Broman is right with the marketing. Maybe if they initially released it on PC and mobile, this might have been a completely different story and nearly gave up on Among Us. But altogether, these 50 dedicated players kept the game alive and kicking. The Innersloth kept pushing Among Us after knowing about the dedicated fan base of 50 players, later on adding sound, released on Steam, and also adding online multiplayer. Innersloth chugged along for 2 more years with Among Us. Then, like the Thanos blip, Innersloth had that spike.
I am inevitable.
very painful for Innosoft. The player base has now tripled to 150 in 2019. They keep on adding new content, but then they decided to maybe even go a different direction and make Among Us 2 with maybe better prep around the marketing and everything around it and new added content. But then 2020 happened. This for some may have been the worst year, but for Innosoft it was a blessing in this. Oh, 1 second. Oh yeah, a blessing in disguise. The first spike all started in South Korea with the passionate games of 10,000 watching Among Us on YouTube and Twitch, and then it spread to Brazil with 10 million viewers on YouTube and Twitch, and then the first spike of players with 10 million. After this dropped, however, Innosoft started thinking about making Among Us 2. Then the butterfly effect happened, and through more dedication to Among Us, it continued to grow. So 2020 was really the year of the sloth. Well, if you think about it, a lot of us did do fuck all. It was more than one way the year of the sloth. But especially for Innosoft, who had a massive spike in player count. This is where all of their dedication paid off, with its peak players count being 3.8 million. That's 76,000 times more players than the original player count they had at the beginning. How the hell did a little indie studio in 2020 pull this massive milestone off? Well, they did this by being picked by the new overlord of gaming, Twitch. As in mid-2020, Twitch streamers in Brazil, Mexico and South Korea playing a lot of Among Us, but the original butterfly effect here was a streamer who goes by Sodapin, sorry if I butchered that name, who is a streamer with over 360 million viewers. This had a butterfly effect, but there were mainstream streamers also trying out the game, giving it even more popularity. Then near every stream was giving the game a try. I bet at one point nearly every streamer you watched were playing this game. If the Twitch gods will it, it will be done. This is the core reason why Among Us grew in popularity so quickly, but there are other aggravating factors to the sudden rise of the game. One is that obviously the consistency of the studio or worked on this game for 2 years, when even though the player count was low, but the other was a little global pandemic closing off the world, and Among Us' socialising aspect has been said to be one of the factors of why this became so popular. It's also been mentioned that the release of the Henry Stick collection, what has a dedicated cult following of sorts, did bring in some new players as they released at the same time. My mumbling theory, yeah, I'm making this a bit in every video, is that even though all this pushed the game forward, another game called Fall Guy, what did have a very similar little people about, did also bring in a lot of players, with the people maybe getting confused of which one was Among Us and which one's Fall Guy when downloading. Fall Guy did have its own popularity at a similar time. It does all revolve around the fact that none of us could leave the house, and these games being what they said on the tin, there was no really microtransactions, just a fun laid back experience that everyone can enjoy. There's a lot of reasons why the game thrived. Some of them are luck, but the studio doing some hard work is seen as well. What started as 3 developers and only took just a year to launch has become one of the biggest rising games in history. It is one of the most popular games ever created due to the massive rise in just 1 month. However, there are some darkness from across the pond. Popularity grew and Among Us created a massive fan base for the game, with merch, YouTube, fan art and everything was Among Us at one point. Then, the copycat ninja of gaming market tried to copy Among Us concept. Okay, I think there's only one more left. Here I go, killing again. Oh, that was easy. Epic Games, who have created another one of the biggest games ever, Fortnite, game that has also become a massive part of gaming over the past couple of years, with some thinking that Fortnite created the Battle Royale genre. However, Fortnite at one point was a survival zombie game that used to be called Save the World, and it's still playable today. Fortnite is nowhere near the original Battle Royale. There's a reason in the PUBG marketing they point out that they're the original Battle Royale. Epic's game tried to do this again by taking over the Among Us genre in December 2020. This is after the spike in players of Among Us, what started as a community creative mode and going by the name Spy Within. Yeah, that isn't a problem. Fans made it in creative mode and they're all playable, but what Epic did after this was a massive dick move. In August 2021, Fortnite released a new mode called Imposter. Whilst even more similarities with Among Us were near all elements being ripped from the game. Even the name Imposter isn't original. This even got a response from the big bad co-founder himself, who has pretty much been vocal throughout this whole story. He said, and I quote, "Is it really that hard to put a 10% more effort into putting your own spin on it though?" They also mentioned that they were open for a collaboration. Stuff like this makes it hurt to be a Fortnite mark. It doesn't seem like this mode is picking up that much steam, and Among Us is still the boss of this weird little subgenre. We can't end this video without briefly looking at how these events have changed Among Us' future. The game is now released on all consoles, recently released on PlayStation and Xbox. The reason for this video: then at the Game Awards they announced that they were going to get in a VR version of the game, which could be freaking awesome. Among Us is kind of lacking in that horror element that the thing has. This edition could really do something special for the game in the future. I have also massively changed the game in recent updates with roles, level systems and a lot more. There's no doubt that we still seeing a lot more change in the future of Among Us, but from us, that's it. The story is currently into its third year and was a good mumble. If you liked what I was mumbling about, give this mumble a like and subscribe so you can hear every mumble I mumble about. Thank you, see you next time. Also, if you have anything you want me to mumble about, mumble below. Oh, that was easy. Who's next?